both my Facebook group and page.
Okay.
Okay, let's wait for the thing to connect. Are we there yet?
Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook.
Yeah, should be okay lah.
Yep.
Okay, yes, we are live. Woo. Hello parents, this is Coach Johnny here from Learning Out of the Box, and thanks so much for being here. And today we have our 45th guest.
Wow.
Hello, Benjamin.
Hey, John. Hello.
Hello. Okay, let me intro Benjamin. Yeah, so he is the youngest certified speaking professional in Asia and associate certified coach with the International Coach Federation and regional author. And just now, I actually prepared this book that you gave me many years ago. Ooh.
Wow. Still holding on to it. Wonderful.
Yes, and I think the price of this book or the value has gone up by many times. Okay, Ben, can you share with us like your backstory? Because I think many parents will be very keen. How do you end up being the youngest certified speaking professional in Asia?
Yep. Okay, so first and foremost, to John, thanks for having me on your show. I don't know who is tuning in. If you are, there should be some form of like a feedback mechanism. Maybe type it into the Facebook group and say hi or say me, so that John can take a look. Because we hope this session will not just be a two-person dialogue, but it will be a multi-person dialogue where we can have a conversation. So I think first things first is the context. So for me, being a youngest certified speaking professional, what does that mean? I am a professional speaker, meaning to say I am being engaged by corporations where they pay me good money to fly to a certain destination to speak for 1 hour to hour half to or sometimes I run a full day training. So for me, my work spans across 8 different countries in Asia, and I'm being booked by clients like Porsche, Prudential, Dell, Toyota to basically speak to the leaders on a variety of issues. I think chiefly is around how do leaders who are in the Gen X generation, how do they connect with the younger generation? And throughout all this speaking engagements, at the back of the log sheet or the tracking sheet, I've been sort of putting in the data. There's actually an accolade that's being conferred to the top 12% of professional speakers globally. So think of it like, for example, my former life was an accountant. I'm going to go into my backstory. My former life was an accountant. An accountant will become like a CPA, a certified public accountant, only if you have, like, for example, take exams, you go through, this and what tests, you have to work how many years at the accounting firm, right? In the same way, professional speakers also have this accolade or the certification. So as of February 2020, I am the youngest CSP, certified speaking professional, gone through the battery of tests, the income requirements of, I think, it was 400,000 US dollars or Aussie dollars, right? Depending on where you apply. And as of the requirements, I'm the youngest. So moving into the backstory, I think to keep things really tight, there's a few sort of chapters, I would say. First chapter of my backstory is that I am a very, very typical takte, good student kind of kid throughout my schooling days. And I would say, why is that? Different people have different reasons. I don't know about John but for me, I was a good student because studying was the only thing that I could do well in. I was only good at studying, right? So from 7 to 17 years old, I was a serial bully victim. So in boys' school, I was 10 years boys' school. So I made a joke when after the secondary 4 went to JC, right? It's like the 和尚下山. Right, you spend 10 years in the monk, and then first day in JC, I saw girls, and I saw people. Obviously, outside can see skirts but in the JC, I say, wow, girls in skirts, and then I literally got stunned. I don't dare to talk to girls. So that was my backstory. 7 to 17 years old, serial bully victim. I was bad at, for example, socializing, bad at music, bad at sports, and I was morbidly obese, very, very low self-esteem. And for me, growing up, just had one simple goal in mind, which is I was trying to find myself, and I think I found myself through academics because that was the only thing that was predictable. I could do well, get good results, and then I get a bit of recognition like, oh, first in class is band, second in class, blah, blah, is band, whole level, whole cohort, first, second, and then jump through the academic hoops. That was the first chapter. I think the first chapter was really sort of finding initial success, finding myself. I think the second chapter of my backstory was when I went through a life coaching program and I was 18 or 19 years old. And I think at that point in time was also continuation from story number one, which is I've been doing well in school, had scholarships. I almost applied to study in the UK, but I think at the time I was already a bit wavering, so I didn't make it through. But to the second story was that I realized that if I continue living my life the way I was living all the way through 18 years, right, how would the next 18 years look like for me? And that was when I started to look curious and I started to be curious and started to meet people who were like in the 30s and 40s and say, hey, how does working life look like for you? Why do you want to go to work? And what excites you? So at 18, 19 years old, I was like searching for the meaning of life. I was like looking at people at work. And then through the whole life coaching program and experiences, gave me a lot of insights as to who I am and what I wanted to do. So through the whole program, I realized that what I wanted to do wasn't what I had planned to do, right? What I had planned to do after uni, I had placements to study accounting, accountancy at all the major universities in Singapore, NUS, NTU, SMU. So I went to SMU, but I went to SMU to study accountancy because of two reasons. One, when I was in NS, I was reading this magazine and they said like accounting and finance people make 5-figure salary when they graduate. I don't know for John lah, but for me it was like, wow, so much money. I want to go there. And then the second reason was that my mom is a sales supervisor slash manager. She reports to the CFO. So she always tell me in Hokkien, say, you become a CFO, you every month earn 20K a month. So that was like my initial goal. So the second story was going into accounting school, but at the same time, I went through a life coaching program that really gave me a bit of like digging and awareness as to what I really enjoyed. So I think through accounting school, I wasn't studying that much. Results went down, but it started my whole past 10 years or past easily 2008 until now, past 12 years of finding my career footing, my professional footing. So I graduated with an accounting degree from SMU, but I decided not to practice. I didn't even join an accounting firm at all. And then I started my whole journey leading and walking towards till today as a full-time speaker, coach, as well as a author as well. So that's really the two backstories coming together to today.
Wow, so now I know more about you because I've known you for 5 years and I haven't really heard the two chapters of your backstory. Probably what I've heard is the summarized version, the condensed version. Yeah. So okay, I want to ask. I think because a lot of times when we are living in Singapore and probably the normal track is always primary school, secondary school, and then following your track and then also doing things what you have graduated from. Yeah. So was there a time that you felt that you were like squeezed or you feel stretched because there's this norm in the society as well as you want to follow your own dream, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, I think all the time, and excellent question from John. One is I am very, very aware that John's community is made of parents, and I don't know, like how are you all able to tune in at 11 plus a.m., but this recording will be made available anyway. But if you're tuning in to us live, I know you're a parent, you're a working parent, and I want to sort of frame things up. Whatever I'm going to share in the next, the remaining part of this conversation is not coming from a parent. I'm not yet a parent, so I can't. So actually, when John invited me up on this show, right, I also feel a bit stressed. Like, I'm not a parent yet. Like, I need to tell you all about like things that will help you to shape parenting decisions. So one caveat, please take it that I'm not a parent and I'm not giving parenting advice. I think two, where I could potentially share a bit of insights is my interaction with young people and being a relatively young person in the professional scene still. So to answer John's question squarely, I think the pressure all the time, right? I think in Singapore is especially intense and immense. But the thing is, I have always since 18, 19 years old, been always like call this 崇洋媚外, right? Like you always like adorn the Western. I've seen a lot of like examples whereby, I see people in the West in US, they study architecture, but end up doing something else. They study law, end up open cafe. They study accounting, end up this. And then I'm thinking, at least it dawned upon me to say, it doesn't mean that you study anyhow, you must be anyhow, right? But I realized that there is a possibility, right? So going back to Singapore context, I feel that it's always very restricting, right? So for example, when I studied accounting and then I decided my first job out of accounting school was doing sales. So not my own business yet, but I joined a training company to do sales. I recall I had two encounters. One, my uni friend said, Ben, maybe you should go to accounting firm first and work for a few years and then at least get your CPA, that certificate, so you don't waste your 4 years. And then at the back of my mind, I already said I felt I wasted 4 years already. Then you want me to do something to get an accounting cert so that I can practice, but I really quite clear I don't want to practice accounting for the rest of my life. So why do I still want to go through that? And then the second thing, I think when you're doing something that you're not being like vocationally trained for, which in my case accounting, right? People will always doubt you. So I recall at Bishan Interchange when I met an NS friend, and that time I was still like picking up, like at the initial stages of my work, and then he still gonna say, "Oh Ben, how your freelancing going? Still surviving or not?" Right? So the undertone and then his backhand meaning is like, ayo, why you want to do something so unstable, can pay you well, man. So definitely I think the pressures are always there. And I want to say that in Singapore, especially when success is very defined very conventionally in a very narrow sense, right? Every time you diverge out, you meander out, it's going to be stressful. And I think if you're a parent, if you have a kid who's starting to have signs of that, this is going to be a real dilemma as to whether you should have a safe, guaranteed policy, or should you encourage your kids to pursue their own quote unquote genius passion or pursuit. So yes, I think the challenge is always there.
I think for me to explain to the parents why I actually brought them, because I think because he has a lot of working experience with the younger people, as well as he's also worked with those business leaders. Yeah, so at the same time, I think he has views from the best of both worlds, being able to understand the younger generation, and also I think parents in my group, some of them may have older kids, like maybe they are already 21 years old or at least 18 years old. And I think during that point in time, they are already old enough and probably have shared with their parents that they have some choices or there are some dreams that they want to achieve. And as a parents, it will be very good for us to hear from you, like what are some of the things that you took away when you interact with the younger people.
Totally. I'm happy to answer questions if within my knowledge zone. If not, I'll try to give you my limited perspective. But I think to pick on shortly, like what John said, I think each and every generation, right? One thing I actually noticed that their whole their openness is something that's a unique hallmark to that, right? So like, for example, I'm working with a few interns from NTU. I thought I was pretty young at early 30s already lah. But then when I realized when I hire and I have staff who's like 10 years younger than me, it really changes your perspective. So like the younger people these days, right, who are working with me, sometimes the question they're asking me is like, they'll ask me like, Ben, why do you do the work you do? Like what makes you fulfilled, right? So they're asking what I feel like is a very higher order question.
Yeah.
Whereas if I look at my dad and my akong and my ama, right, who have already passed on, right, very simple Maslow hierarchy of needs lah. The key concept is to put food on the table. So I think in each and every generation that's coming along, right, it's getting easier and it's also getting harder. I think it's getting easier in terms of the basic life needs, but it's also getting harder because I think I wouldn't as parents, because that assumes I'm a parent lah, which I haven't yet been. But I think as parents, potentially, we always need to ask them, it's not like what we need, but what they need. And this one, my context is that I'm an employer, but I'm working with someone who's like 10, 12 to 15 years younger than me, 15 meaning 18 years old. And then I'll ask, like, what does he really need at his life stage? And then sometimes when I put myself in their shoe, it really opens up a different world.
Yeah. So in a sense, when you work with them, what are kind of the traits that you see that you know that they are going to have a higher chance of being successful in their later part of their life?
Yeah. So I think the common terms that we have to define first is like what is success. I think what is success to us, to parents, will be very different to what is success to the young children. So if like and that's the question I always ask lah, like I would say, like, for example, in you spending 3, 6, 9 months with us in my company, right? How does success look like for you? So I think from the horse's mouth, in terms of the interns I've been working with, a lot of things that I've been noticing is like, and maybe that's where I come to the younger generation, right? Money doesn't come up in them, in their conversation. And I think, again, you can say like again the naysayers will say like obviously lah Ben, their parents cover everything, 他们不愁吃不愁穿, everything the money is presented to them, right?
Yeah.
I think the good or not so good thing, rather I won't say good or not so good, but the thing is money doesn't come up, but a lot of them will tell me like Ben, I think what would be successful is not if I can discover a bit about myself. Like I want to feel a sense of contribution. Like I want to do something that I have not had the exposure. So case in point, right? One of my interns, she's from NTU. She is studying arts design and media, ADM, right? And she wanted to do something that's non her work. She wanted to go into like more the commercial side of things. So she wanted to learn, like, for example, how I engage my corporate clients and how I sell services, how I sort of like be a bit more business savvy. So this is an example whereby they wanted to immerse themselves and experience. Okay, so a few things I may be losing myself. First feature is that wanting to try something different from what they have been doing, right? So another quick comparison is my previous intern, also from NTU, Indonesian scholar, very, very talented, score GPA out of 5, he's got 4.7, 4.8. And then when he applied to me, he was wanting to do graphics design. And I say, like, wow, you study mathematics at NTU, and then you want to do graphic design. It's like left, right brain is like tumbale kind, but he wanted that graphic design experience. And then, so I realized that, hey, young people do this really very, very bold. Like for me, when I was doing this in 2008, that was in my uni year 1, nobody really do something out of their scope. So I was the outlier. But now I see this as a norm, that they are willing to build themselves as a seeking variety experience, being a more all-rounded individual. I think the second thing, which is a good thing that I think I want to celebrate, is a lot of them say, Ben, how can I contribute to you? How can I, like, this 3 months, I don't feel like I just like sold and I get money from you, but I also want to feel that I've contributed to you. I made a difference for you, your business, your clients. So I think the whole very identity, very experience is one. The sense of contribution, the other. And then the third thing I saw is they're very gan-gan-lai. They dare to do things. And I think, again, it's something that as I speak to the senior generations about younger generations, they don't see the good, they always see the not so good, right? They see the negative, which is they see what the media portray young people as lazy, narcissistic, like to do things and then jump around. It's like 3分钟热度, in what we call in Mandarin, right? So they see all this negative, but I always like to put the light on the positive things. And, I see all these positive traits coming up. The third one is they're willing to try. So like, for example, my Indonesian intern, I give him a challenge and I say, hey, you've been doing graphic design for me, blah, 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 marketing, all those social media management, great. I have a webinar that I'm running for a client. It's a virtual webinar, 400 people. And then I say, hey, is your Bahasa good? He say, yeah, not too bad. So end up, he hopped on, he did live interpretation for me, 400 people for about 90 minutes. Wow. And then he really felt like, wow. So when I did the whole reflection for the internship, he said, like, Ben, that was experience that I did not expect. Because I was so worried, like this, I know this one is a paying client of yours, you're being paid. And then that was a lot of stress. But when I put him through this experience, he's totally grown. And the thing is, I also like went forward. I gave him a reward lah. So I earned like X $1,000 from the speaking seminar, right? I less the operating cost, which is about 10 to 20%. I donated half, and I even give him like a sort of a performance or a speaking fee for that. So that really, I felt what I did right was, one, I gave him the experience to try something new. And then two, I also let him realize, hey, actually there's more ways to earn and monetize your expertise and your whole value. And that when you give good value, you can get rewarded. So for me, that's as an employer, that's how I relate to the younger people. I give them that open test bed, letting them try, but then I also give them like certain rewards that they never would expect as well.
And it sounds like behind all this, there's like some form of trust that you know that he's going to make it. I mean, this is what I heard, because, and I think that there's a lot of times that because, and I work with parents with younger kids, and because I think they're very young then, between the P1 to P6, so there are many of us probably we are a bit scared to let go too much. And I can also see that for the parents with older kids between C1 to even as old as JC2, some parents are still very scared to let go. Yeah. So I thought, what will be some sort of good advice for us parents? Because I think that when you work with the younger people, in your own experience, is it that because they have reached that age, that's why they are mature enough to decide what they want, or is it because or you think that there's something more because of is how they are brought up in the family?
I think it's definitely at the end of the day, it's going to be a mixture of both the whole nature and nurture part of it. So again, I think again your question, the premise is that are they naturally, when do they know it's like a fruit, right? Is it ripe already? When should we give them the blessing and when should we handhold them? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, it's a $1 million golden question, right? Like if we have this kind of like education or training or a kind of machine to find it out, I think everyone will be millionaire.
Yeah.
But I think again, I always come from the experience, and I think that will be the experience where I would come from when I become a parent, is that I think sometimes one is my style is I would always ask more than I would say, right? So I always ask more questions than I would say. So take for example, when I'm managing my intern, right? Like I know what is the sample answer already, the model answer. Like for example, client A needs to have these problems, and to overcome them, what are your solutions, right? I know all the solutions already because I've been doing this work for a while. But and I let my intern and say, if you are me, these are the issues that you face. What will you do? And then I keep quiet. I give them the time. And then sometimes I realize, right, people already have like the imagination and the ability to roughly think. And I think the value for us, whether as parents or employers or someone mentoring the younger person, right, is not to sometimes like dish out all the answers. And I think again, this is maybe one of the challenges in the local Singapore education system. Like we give all the answers wholesale. And I think that defeats the whole purpose and the thinking. So for me, at least my management style is okay, when they give solution A, B, C, and I say, okay, so why do you come up with A and B? Right? Comparing B and A, which one is better? How do you arrive? So that will be, I always adopt more of a coaching stance. And then I realize when people come up with their own perspective and answers, right, they own them a lot more. Right. I think second thing is like how do we encourage experimentation without like sort of like big failures? So like for example, what I did not mention is like the 400 people live webinar, right? I also trial and tested my intern first. So I had like one-to-one coaching students with my Indonesian student, right? So that's where I asked him, Wilson, like do live interpretation for me with my Indonesian mentees as well. So he was already like gaining a lot of stage time and small practices. So I think again, as maybe again Asians, we always think like, like what if they fail at the big stage? But how about we can provide smaller stages for them to experiment, to try, for them to fail and fall down? That doesn't cost us a lot. That doesn't jeopardize or ruin the whole game, or that doesn't paralyze anyone. And I think again, if I am ever going to be a parent, I think that's the key thing, right? Give them smaller platforms, smaller stages where they can try, they can go and make mistakes. And for me, I think in my teenage years, the reason why, again, I think John put this like the resilience thing, right? For me, growing up, my parents gave me the full permission to do a lot of things. So when I was in uni, the average uni student in SMU was like going through internship exam, right? I only just barely passed, but my parents and I came to a conclusion. I say, I tell my mother, I minimum will give you that piece of paper, but you let me do whatever I want. Then she said, okay, since you're the kind, I cannot control you. So I joined 30 over competitions in SMU, like public speaking competition, branding design competition. I did like average student only do like one accounting internship. I did 6 internships. I did like media hosting, blah, blah, blah. So I think for me, experimentation trying is in my blood. And that's also how I manage people. And that's what I also realized that, hey, it's a click with the younger generation, it seems, because they yearn for this kind of like openness, exploration, discovery, identity.
Wonderful, yes. And I like the part that you shared about feeling forward, yeah, because I think that even for me, even for teaching them children maths, and there's a lot of times that we want the children to fail forward, in a sense, to make mistakes and to eventually to discover the answer.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think what I'm really stuck when I work with the parents, there's for the parents who are very wise and they know that failing forward is important. It's a very small group. Yeah. At the same time, there's this big group of parents who are keen for their children to try, but at the same time, because of the society expectation, it's feeling that they are stuck and like how should I put it? Like it's a to and fro thing. Like maybe I can let you try, but maybe at times I just want to dish out the answer for you. So I'm trying to find the kind of link for the parents in a sense. The the worth of our kids has already changed, and yet the system that our children are going through is all like all prepared for them, or this is the answer, you must follow this, if not it's wrong. If you give other things that is outside the box, it's all wrong. Yeah. So I just want to hear from you. So how we parents can also support the children even all the way until probably Sec 3 and 4, but also giving them more space to experiment.
I want to say this honest thing, but may not be very politically correct.
Yeah.
But I think again, if the world has changed and we know that our children have to change the world, then the last part of the equation is us, right? So I always ask, and I think I will also practice this when I become a parent as well, is that I think in this larger macro environment where the whole world is full of flux, right? And then we seem to be designing this little greenhouse for our kids to be more adaptable, right? But we need to ask ourselves, where are we? Are we in the greenhouse with them, or are we in this bigger environment? I think we should be in both. So I think one of the things that I heard from your whole statement is that it is the role of a parent is to manage and create this greenhouse whereby it's challenging enough for the person to thrive, but not so challenging that it will leave them to die, right? But it's also important, I feel, right, in terms of us like being a role of a parent, mentor, coach, educator, to also ask ourselves, are we also in similar situations whereby we are forced to be resourceful, creative, and sort of like stretching to ourselves? So I like to think that the average parent now is likely going to be working as well, right? So I think a good reflection is have an integrity check with our own self. Like, are we also sort of adapting well to the challenges on our work, right? And I think again with this whole COVID pandemic, this is a very, very fluid situation. I work with a lot of corporate clients who are parents as well. Some of them, they are very adaptable. So, they're sort of like spending their hours well. They are sort of like doing, I don't know, a lot of like exercise at home, online learning. They're keeping their mind fresh, nimble, and sharp. And maybe even if you're a stay-at-home parent as well, right? My PA is a stay-at-home mom as well, right? And I see her through her Instagram stories while she's doing my work. She's also like reading on parenting on plants, like botany, helping her child to discover. She is always like feeling something new inside the mind. And I think that's the requisite. So for me, I think, again, where to find the middle ground is one, the parent has to be actively involved in the process of evolution and growth as well. Not just like seeing your child grow and that is your growth. I think for me, that for me is like something my wife and I, we discuss when we become parents, right? We also have to be growing as well, because I think if you have been a parent, you will notice that children are very, very perceptive. They will see you as well. So sometimes there's incongruence about you. They say, hey, why you don't try something new? You stretch yourself. But you see the parent and then they say, hey, daddy, mommy always do the same thing, right? So I like to think that if I'm ever going to be in a situation, I want to come from a space of congruence as well. Like if I want my kids to stretch myself, I need to ask myself professionally, personally, am I stretching myself? Am I learning a new skill? I think the second thing is communications and feedback. So again, not from parent perspective, but from a management perspective, I always have regular pep talks. Sometimes I also kepo. I'll go to their Instagram story. I see what they're posting, and then I say, hey, hey, what's that food you're trying out, or are you trying new experiences? I think I have a watch on them, not like spying on them, but we have this like common agreement that I will be keeping in touch with you. So usually, even for my internship, I don't make it say, hey, what's your Instagram handle? I follow you, right? I will always set up to say, hey, for me to work well with you, I want to relate to you not just as your boss or your manager, but also potentially as a friend. Would you be okay, if we sort of share contacts on social media, so that at least you know what I am and who I am out of my professional work. You can see me as a person, and I also can see you as a person. So I think the framing, the setup is important. Again, can this be applicable to parent? I think so, right? So like as a parent, you cannot straight away say, hey, John, what's your Instagram handle? What is this username? You must accept me, you cannot block me. So I think, again, as parents, right, again, it is a very enviable, but it's also a very challenging task, which I think if you're a parent, none of us sign up for this, but this comes in the whole process and journey of growth.
And I like the part that you mentioned about congruence, because I think in my experience of working with kids and those kids who are doing very well in school, for example, kids who like math and they are always solving the questions, what I always hear from them is their parents also like math and are also and they solve the questions with them at home.
Yep.
and versus parents who say that, oh, I want my child to do well in maths and not make mistake, but the parents do not want to do anything with the child at all. Yeah, and I also heard from other friends who are educators themselves, and this kid who is very good with his Chinese, and the parents also like to read the Chinese books with them. Yeah, so I guess the basic thing for parents here is we got to walk the talk if we want our children to do what we want, what we're telling them. Yeah. Okay. I think that, and I know that you also work with managements, many of them. And what are some of the attributes that you hear from them that they want their employees to be? And the reason why I ask is because our Facebook group is for parents who teach their children primary school math. So the children are all very young.
Yep.
And because they are very young, so to do well for PSLE is a very big thing to them. But at the same time, we also hear from parents that now no one actually asks them about their PSLE grades. Yeah. So what are some of the traits that the management would want their team to have?
So I think there's a different perspective you can look at. I mean, one is the World Economic Forum, WEF, actually released like what we call as the 21st century skills, right? I think there's a total of 8 or 10 skills. Insight and innate, there are, like, for example, hard skills and soft skills, right? So hard skills are, again, like the sort of the technical or a process kind of skill that you can learn. So for example, WEF listed sort of hard skills, like, again, I don't know, is it like coding, network management, and stuff like that. Those I usually will take and I'll glance, but I'm more interested in the soft skills, like, for example, communication, empathy, sort of like working in decentralized teams. These are the things that are increasingly important. So again, to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, sometimes I will always like ask my clients, and they are all from the MNCs, you know, they are directors and they're hiring in hiring capacities. I always ask them, like, what do you look for in a potential candidate? How does a young candidate thrive in your corporation? It will not run away from the few factors. I mean, one is that they're always looking for curiosity, right? So number one factor I always hear is like curiosity. And again, I think that's maybe why I also managed to work with them at that level, because I always come in with an empty mind, and then I say, like, you know, like for example, one of my hats that I wear is a public speaking coach, which is when I had a stint with John. I work with corporate clients, and I say, okay, so tell me the obvious, like, what are you nervous about, right? And how is this causing you that kind of fear, that kind of stress? And I think, again, the ability to ask questions, the premise is that you need to be curious, right? Because question is a formation. It's like question comes from a space of not knowing, right? And not knowing comes from a space of wanting and being able to see things that you know and things that you don't know, right? And questions also come from the space of wanting to know what you don't know, right? So again, if we take this whole premise as one, this whole value of curiosity, I think there's a lot of things we as parents and educators can do, which is one, we constantly need to let people know that whatever we know of this world, of our worldview, is only this small map, but they're so much bigger, right? So it entails us doing a few things. One, we also need to enlarge our map of the world. So, you know, are we constantly asking ourselves what is out there? What is new? Are we seeking new experiences? And then two is communicating that to our kids or our children or my interns or my staff, right? So usually I'll say, hey, like I saw this interesting thing. I will make an effort to forward this and say, hey, I thought you may be interested in this. And then sometimes vice versa, I'll say, hey, tell me something that may surprise me about this, right? So, like, for example, this current NTU intern, she's a girl studying NTU. I would just literally say, okay, next meeting, right? I'll give you half an hour, right? I want you to prepare like maybe a training or a sharing to me about the LGBT scene in Singapore, right? So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, because we are doing a media project. And then she'll do the research. She's very excited, and then she'll come back and then she'll share everything about me. So I think, again, curiosity is something. Sometimes people think is you're naturally curious, but I think curiosity can be engineered and conditioned and can be trained out. Second value that I see is, again, the CC's curiosity. Second is communications. I think, again, I see a lot of my clients and mentees as well who are parents. They send their children to public speaking training, and I think that's an amazing thing because Asians compared to Westerners, right, we are always less reserved, less expressive, less being able to communicate our thoughts and perspective. But in this real working world, those of you parents who are in the working world, it's very obvious to see in the working world, right? Whoever that's always very expressive, whoever can like make something out, are usually who? The Americans, the Indians, right? And we see it like, okay, Indians, East Asians, but Americans, Indians, right? How are they so expressive? Because I like to think that the whole education system, the parenting style encourages dialogue, encourages expression. So for me, I think if I become a children, now as I am an employer, I always encourage people to speak up. And that also like creating safe space, you speaking up, the whole mismatch of things. So curiosity, communications. I think the third thing that I would say as an important criteria is the collaboration skill. I think the newer collaboration skill is what is it? I think that being able to collaborate with people who are different from you, that is also something that is very highly valued by a lot of the corporate clients I speak to. What does it mean? It's like, can you work with someone of a different background from you? Can you sort of speak to someone who's a different gender from you, different orientation, different culture? So again, that's why I mean, from very much younger age, I went to exchange. I sort of represented Singapore in exchange to India. There were like people from 15, 20 different cultures, from the Angmo to the Asians. I did my exchange in Korea as well. I've interacted with people from different countries. I think again, the most important thing for us as Singaporeans is to step out of our little red dot. This little red dot gives us so much security, so much comfort, so much things that we can be thankful for. But sometimes if we don't step out our world to see the larger world around, we think the world just revolves around Singapore. So that's very dangerous. So those are the 3 C's that I'll list out.
Wow. So these are the 3 C's that you'll see, and also you want your team members to have as well.
Yeah, I think unconsciously these are the hiring criteria. So also ask them like I will see like how curious are they? Are they like always like trying the new things? Are they curious? Are they sort of like looking at things with a fixed mindset, or like being open? Are they one good at communications? Because a lot of my work is like putting them in front of my clients. They need to carry themselves well, or at least they are willing to let me train them. And then the third thing is, are they able to collaborate in uncertain environments, work under pressure, collaborate with a lot of stakeholders? I think all these things are what increasingly I see employers are looking out for, and they are sort of putting a premium on. Like gone are the days, I think to get an interview is like, for example, your PSLE must get at least a good score. So I get like what 2.5 plus for PSLE, got into STEP school. Right, all this gets you in the door, right? But what keeps you inside the room, I think, are these 21st century skills that we should all embrace.
Well, this is a very nice way to put it. You have to have skills that will keep you inside the door, because if let's say only grades, grades can only bring you so far. Yeah, so I think to help my parents to put in the context, because I think what we're sharing here for the young adults, but at the same time, as a father, I feel that everything starts off from home. Yeah, so even when we parents are in our Facebook groups to teach our children math at home, I think we can start off like with a question, like getting to get your kid to share with you what do they think about the question, and to articulate out. Yeah, that is to share with you, like even if it's wrong or right, it doesn't matter. The key point here is the process of getting your child to be able to speak up.
Yeah. I totally concur that. I think again, I like to always think that our life is getting better, but also getting tougher, right? In the past, it's like, for example, my mom always tells me that when she was like pregnant with me, she had to work 3 jobs. She had to do like a daytime like sales job, and then the nighttime she goes to work at the second job, and then the weekend she take on another third, right? She didn't have time to really like sit down and talk to me. I think again, I can't assume for sure. I know again, many busy parents, but I think our quality of life has gone up already, right? Our standard of living has gone up already. Sorry, how should I say this? Our ability to provide a material life definitely is much better. But let us not also neglect the quality of the whole conversations and life we're going to have with our children. So I think again, the whole reason why we earn more money is that money buys us more time, right? And then with more time, I think that's where, if we can, in a position, we can sort of like do all these kind of things that require really time, effort, and presence. Like what John mentioned, right? Asking questions, not judging, giving the process, giving the safe space, right? This is what we can afford that maybe our parents, our grandparents cannot afford. Because at that time, it's just work for 24 hours or 20 hours, 18 hours a day. But now, hopefully, with better, comfortable life that we can afford, we should also spend that kind of time. And I think, again, for me, as a manager as well, relating to younger people, I think sometimes it's not so much about, again, I like to think and that's how I also recruit younger talents.
Yeah.
I say, I'm not a shop back, I'm not a Facebook, I cannot pay you very big salary, but what I can give you is my time. And I think my time is the highest ROI that I can give you, that I will encourage dialogue, give you a safe space, experiment, so on and so forth. I think the second thing I want to pick up for John as well, I noticed on his Facebook sharing, is that he is also notice he's an educator, he's a teacher, but he's also learning a lot. So I saw him picking up books on Chinese and coaching. And I think that's what exactly I mentioned about congruence, walking the talk, is that, people are always taking reference from you. Are you learning? Are you putting into action? Are you evolving? Are you growing as well? So I think all those are essentials, whether as a parent or someone who's leading and growing young people.
Yeah, and add on, and because I think as a dad, if I want my girl to read up more, I will have to put aside time to read up more. If I want my child to respect me, I also need to exhibit the same behavior in front of not just her, but also in front of any other people that I've met.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think and I totally want my behavior to be congruent with what I'm pitching to her. Yeah. Yeah, and talking about time, I think, and the irony is, many parents do tell me that because in my Facebook group, and I advocate the fact that parents, no matter how busy they are, they need to sit down with their child, at least to get to know what they do and hear from the child without judging them. But the funny thing that what I get back from most parents is that they have no time. Yeah, they simply have no time because they do not know what's going on, but they're so busy with their own work. Well, I understand that, but at the same time, it's an irony because we work hard to buy time. At the same time, we do not have time for our kids. So I'm trying to see what I can get out from this sharing from the side to help the parents to bridge, and so that they can see in the future that actually their kids need them. And the biggest ROI thing, this one you say, is a time from the parents. Yeah. So in your interaction with the younger people, did they mention anything about so how they wish that their parents could have given XYZ to them? Because I think you
say that again.
So when you work with the younger generation, and I think that because of the trust that you have built and the rapport that you have built, probably they have shared with you things that they don't share with their moms or dads. Yeah. So was there anything that you pick up that it could help us to be better parents? Because I think there are some youth that I work with, they told me this: how I wish my mom could work less and spend more time with me. But they wouldn't tell their mom because they know that you'll never get a time from their mom.
Yeah. Again, I can say for sure, but I think I've heard a few sort of interesting perspective. I think one was that 2 interns back, right? I had a conversation with her. She was an intern from Yale and US, and then I say hey, how are things like on your personal front, right? How are your relationships with your dad? And I think I am very envious that she has a very close relationship with her dad. So I'm very naturally capable. So I asked her, so what does your dad do? So her dad is a professor, right? So her dad is a professor, not at the same university, but another university. But she says that, they always have rituals, right? RITUAL. So rituals are certain things that we do it religiously, right? And religiously, not in the sense of religious sense, but we do it almost like a disciplined kind of fashion. And I say, okay, that's interesting. So what kind of rituals do you do with your dad then? And he say from a very, very young age, the dad would always have this, what he calls as a sort of a general knowledge and debate, right? Wow. So for example, I think since she interned with me at 18, 19 years old. And I said, wow, how old you start? Say about 13, 14 years old when she was studying RGS, Raffles Girls School, right? So the dad would always read newspaper, and then a way of bonding with her is that either the dad picks a topic or the girl picks a topic, and then they'll have an open discussion. Doesn't have to be very structured, but for half an hour every Sunday morning. So Sunday morning is the ritual. And that's what I realized, that wow, this actually builds her, right? And builds him as well. Right? Builds her in the perspective, she's a very, very curious and very intellectually sharp person. So I always ask her, for example, Yale NUS students, context very smart enough, like to talk very hee hee ha ha, a lot of good knowledge. Then I say, so what's your perspective of like maybe this situation? So at that time it was like talking about the lack of mobility, lack of socio-economic mobility in Singapore. Okay, like sounds like very cheap lah, but basically is what do you think about how, like for example, there's the rich in Singapore is always getting richer, but the poor is always getting poorer. She is more on the richer perspective lah, but she could really like dissect and say, you know, these are the few drivers, these are the few things, these are the few key considerations. So if there's anything I picked up is that I think good parenting, it is also smart parenting, right? So that's what I realized. That the father folded time, like time you need to read at Potsua, you need to catch up current affairs, right?
Yeah.
He sees it as a time, you know, just carve out half an hour, 45 minutes as an open dialogue. And then he's either sharing or he's saying like, hey, you know, like what is it that you learn new? Right. So he's also curious because it's not just one way, you know, he's also learning from the daughter, and the daughter sometimes is like giving her like, oh, there's a book I read, there's this like courseware that my teacher teach. And that's how he had this open conversation that builds up. So the rituals is one thing that I really I picked up. I think the second thing in terms of like no time, no time, right? I think again, if I'm ever going to be a parent, right, I would always like, for example, invest in people. How should I say? Invest in experiences rather than books. So this same girl, right? I was very, very surprised because her dad used to take her on volunteering trips as well. Right? So like for example, instead of annual holiday, go to Hong Kong, 买东西吃东西, go to Taiwan, 买东西吃东西. They made it very as a young to have like very, how should I say, one experience got out a lot of things. So like for example, she said she used to like go save the turtles and I don't know what, like all this environmental trip, and then go to old folks home. Helps that they are a religious family, a Christian family, so they go to the different mission experience. So it's always a mix of rural, urban. It's a mix of like relaxation, giving. It's a mix of like contributing and then taking, right? So I think again, I was quite impressed lah. But again, I won't say like his way is the way.
Yeah.
Right. So what we need to learn is really the principles and how this whole process nurtured such a girl. So when I was working with her, I say, hey, you seem really very mature. Like the things that you say is what I would like say to people of like 10 years, 20 years older, but you are able to see things that way. Right. So again, I think again, as parents, we always are very tempted to say, what is the low hanging fruit, the easier solution, right? But how about we say a solution that can fold and multi-layered experience that could give us a relaxation, could spend time, could teach them something. And I think if I'm going to be a parent one day, right, I will always like gun and create this kind of experiences as a priority.
Yeah, and I like the part that the dad actually spend time with the girl, and what the dad did is consciously put aside time for her. And it's the same it's like seeing our clients, we block out time for our clients. So same thing what the dad did in this case is the dad actually block out time for her every week. And she is his like VIP client.
Totally.
And I want to add some things that I've done that other parents can do as well, and what we call dates nights. Dates night with our kids. Yeah. So what I did when my kids were 5, and we have date nights. Yeah. So in a sense, I got 3 girls. So I spend one-on-one time with them.
Wow. So you got like 3 girls that you're dating on 3 separate nights.
Correct. Yeah. And I also brought the youngest out alone with her. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, if we want relationship with our children, we have to invest time into it and not expect good relationship if you don't do anything at all. Okay. And even if just what I can chip in is parents, we need to eat, right? We need to eat lunch or dinner, and it's something that you are already doing. So why not date your one of your kids like over lunch, and then while we're eating lunch, we have to do it anyway. You have a chat with your girl or boy, and then talk about anything that interests both of you. Yeah. So that's my sharing with the parents. Yeah.
Excellent.
So Ben, we have come to almost the end. Yeah. Would you have any like final tip for the parents that they can apply right now to support their kids?
Yeah, I think I can't say if it's right now, like as soon as we sort of like lock off. I think again, if I were to do this, I will always like share this casually with parents who are in my audience. Take a look at your calendar, right? And in our work calendar or personal calendar, There are always time that we block out for our proper work, our functional work that pays us the bills. But I think, as rightly pointed out, right, what John says, if you don't block out time, it will never happen, right? So one is like things that we can immediately do is really ask ourselves, how much time are we investing intentionally, deliberately, and solely for our children or our important stakeholders? And I think, again, while we date our daughters as well, maybe also date our wives, our better half as well. But I think, again, and I'm guilty of that. Sometimes I get so busy, right? I just let things happen, or I let things, if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, doesn't happen, right? So for me, it's always being deliberate, looking at our weekly calendar. I think our weekly calendar gives us a lot more clues and evidence. So let us govern time and not let time govern our lives, right? So if we don't intentionally manage our time, then time will intentionally just unintentionally manage us. So that's one. I think two is the second quick tip. It's really a rehash and reiteration. Are we also evolving to be better persons as we are? So for me, I always, at the start of the year, I set aside a learning budget that has a dollar figure aside, right? So I'll set aside like maybe like 5,000, 10,000 for me to be a better speaker, trainer, and coach. And I think this practice will be what I will also constantly evolve when I become a parent as well. I think the time when we stop learning, right? Learning is like a type of muscle. And like John, behind his logo, learning out of the box, right? To be out of the box and to learn to be out of the box, right, entails that you also have to be in the whole state of learning. I think learning puts us in intellectual discomfort. When you're learning something new, you'll feel this whole stress. Like macam go back to primary school, secondary school, JC times, uni times, you need to take a test, right? There's a lot of stress. There's new knowledge. You need to assimilate new things. You need to deconstruct new things. But I think, again, the whole process will then allow us to have a sense of empathy, right? It cannot be your son is struggling with the math question there, that you're doing something, you just like check in, check out, right? So again, not to say that your son suffer, then you also must suffer together, right? But at least your son suffer, you are also learning, and then you're realizing you're putting yourself in the same state. And that's what I also relate to my interns. I say, hey, I want to let you know that, that speech that I did so well, it wasn't without hiccups, like I am still struggling. So I'll be very, very honest. Sometimes I tell my interns that, that speech you think I did well at the start actually fumbled. And then they think, huh, got me? Yes, I got, because, I'll share with them like my inner game, like how I went through. So they realize that, hey, actually their boss, their mentor is also very human. Although he does this for 10, 12 years, he looks good and presentable, but he also made a few mistakes. And then when I tell them this is a mistake, I say, wow, you made so many mistakes, lucky your client cannot see. I hope my clients are not watching this, right? But so I think in the whole learning, executing, and then which leads me to the last tip, which I just say, communicate openly. I think, again, if I'm going to be a parent one day, I think it's also being able to also let your children know that sometimes it's okay that you make mistakes. It's okay that you're also learning in the process. You may not know. And I think, again, put ourselves down, let our egos drop appropriately so that we can connect with people. Those are the three sort of quick advice that I think I could share.
Well, those are great tips even for myself. And this reminded me of a story of another friend who shared, and I think someone that you know as well, Mr. Benjamin Loh. So he was sharing with me that and you know that his daughters are actually quite big. Yeah. Later we can share the age lah. Yeah. So what he shared with me is, in order to connect with her with his daughter, he actually went out to pick up how to learn ukulele.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So and he shared with me that the only reason why he went for lessons by himself so that he got something to talk to his daughter. Yeah, and I think his girl is already in her 20s. Yeah. So the learning as a parent, for the sake of our children, for the connection, it never stops, even until they are very old.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so right now I want to also ask you a question that I always ask my guests, because we serve a Facebook group of parents who support their children in math.
Yeah.
And right now, you know that the PSLE kids are very anxious because the exam is coming soon, like next month. I can oh my God, I can feel their tension as well.
Yeah.
So if I may invite you to walk down the memory lane, from your older self to the younger self, and As you walk down, you met the 12-year-old Benjamin.
Yeah.
What will you say to him?
I mean, granted that my 12-year-old self was just studying. I think I did pretty okay in my PSLE, got to SAP school. If there's anything I would tell my 12-year-old self is that there is more to life than getting A's. So I don't know whether this is helpful for all those of you. I mean, as a parent, I think naturally you all want your children to get good results, right?
Be like
But
you.
I think in the process of doing that, remember to smell the flowers as well. I think the whole journey is that really like what John just now surfaced, right? The employers these days are not even bothered about the PSLE. That's not to say PSLE is not important. The whole way the Singapore education game is stacked is a progressively and it's a stack and tiered game. So if you don't have a strong footing at PSLE, then you go to a quote unquote not so good school, although MOE says all schools are good schools, which I don't believe that's the case. But if you don't do well at PSLE, then you have a harder time. Then you have harder time, right? So the hardness or the toughness actually stacks up. But I say, do what we can to give us the best chance to score well, but also have a bit of time to really discover what something's inside. So maybe as and when possible after PSLE. Okay, so again, I'm jumping the gun, but if I'm going to tell my 12 years old, spend a bit of time to smell the roses. There is more to life than grades. And maybe when you start to discover something outside or something within yourself, you may just be surprised at what you can find.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah. So to summarize for the parents, it's not you don't study for PSLE. You can have stress, but you can put like stress, fun, not stress all the way, then you fun. Then there'll be the breaking point.
Totally.
Maybe too late.
Yeah.
So Benjamin, thanks so much for your time. And if the parents want to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
Professionally, they can reach out to me over LinkedIn. My name is Benjamin, spelled with the last name Loh. If you're in a corporate capacity where you're interested to find out more about the younger generations, a bit about snippet about what we discussed today, and you're in a position to either refer me or to work with me, check me out on LinkedIn. Alternatively, if you want to find out what I do more of the younger side and on Instagram, connect with me at Benjamin_Loh, Loh. That's where in fact, Instagram is not even connecting the youngest generation. Now they're on TikTok, but let's not go into there. I talk about social media trends. I talk about, like, for example, semi-professional, a bit more quirky personal stuff. So if you're interested, you can reach me out over there as well. Just let me know, just like send me a message and say, hi, I sort of like got you or I saw you from John's channel, so at least I know where you come from, because I do a lot of interviews like this, so it's important I know, like, where is the source, so at least I know what the context.
Great. So for parents want to contact Benjamin Loh, go to LinkedIn. You can search for his name, Benjamin Loh, Loh, or you can get from Instagram, Benjamin _ right? You're saying
yes, _Loh. Yep.
Loh, is Loh. Okay, so Ben, thanks for your time, and really I learned a lot from you, because I think that what you just shared, also I can see my girls going to that stage very soon. I mean, probably in the next 10 years, but 10 years just fly past so fast.
I know, right?
So I think that I'm doing relatively good job, but at the same time, I know that I got a lot of areas to improve as well as a parent.
Totally. Thank you so much, Coach John, for having me, and to all the parents, brace and hang in there. I think, again, it's the last stretch. I don't even know when the PSLE times or dates are, but if it's next month, I think that's just like
next month,
end of this month, August.
End of next month.
End of next month. Okay, so just like brace on, hang in there, and I think it's funny how in Singapore, while the kids are taking exams, we are also like taking exams. So give yourself a bit of running break as well.
Okay, great. Parents, so thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next interview.
Yep.
Number 46. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bona.